Hello, it is Wednesday. It is a great week. The sun is shining, and welcome to the view from the top. Later on this week, we've got Easter, so happy Easter, and we've just had Passover, so happy Passover to everybody celebrating either of those festivals. And a great holiday time to everybody out there in the world. We are going to be talking about connecting global mobility and talent, which is such an important subject. And we've got as our special guest a lady who really has done that and lived and breathed. I'm super honored. We've got Yvette Ligter from Thoughtworks who's with us, and it's going to be a fantastic show. We've also got an amazing change maker with us. We got Punita Suri from Gempact. And of course, we've got Julia Onslow-Cole for the latest immigration update. So you know how it works. Please tell us where in the world you are, what you're doing, share all your information with us so that we know what's going on in your world. So join in the conversation, write in the comments box, tell us what's going on, what's new. We are live right now on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube, and also we are available as a podcast on Spotify. So do make sure that you find us on either YouTube or LinkedIn or Spotify. Now, a number of you, of course, want to get your CPE codes, and we have codes from ERC, we have codes from SHRM, and we have codes from HRCI. So to our good friends from Worldwide ERC, many thanks for giving us those CPE credits. They're there for the and many thanks to our good friends from Rocket Mortgage who give us the HRCI and the SHRM codes. So if you want all those codes up there, I'll leave them for a minute. Hi, it was good to see Pamela Patterson from Morristown, New Jersey is in the house. People coming in from all over the world, which is just great to see. I've got Katja coming in from the San Francisco Bay Area, Robert Zeiss, old friend of the show, coming in from Boston, from Cambridge, Mass. We've got people coming in from Hyderabad, all over the world. It's great. Now, talking about people from all over the world, we have got an amazing show for you next week. So I don't know if you've noticed, I'm guessing that maybe you have, but the politics of the world, the geopolitics of the world have been changing over the last couple of months. And so we've got a very special show called Is Globalization at a Turning Point? That is going to be a really important show. So whatever you do, make sure you don't miss that. And we're going to be getting a real in-depth geopolitical analysis from our very own Julia Onslow-Cole, but also we're going to be joined by Mark Birchall, who's the board chair of Worldwide ERC. So that's a really important subject for us, for everybody in our industry to talk about next week. Meanwhile, what's been going on? Oh, and I should say that's going to be open mic. So if you want to join the show, you can also join the show live. We'll be sending out the code so you can actually come on the show. I see Simon is in the house, and we've got Ferzine, who was a guest on the show just the other week, coming as well. So that's really exciting. But what's been going on in the wonderful world of global mobility over the last 7 days? Let's run the video and find out what's been going on in our world over the last 7 days. So there we have it. There's all the breaking news and some exciting stuff there. So if you have been promoted in the last 7 days, if you have got a new job in the last 7 days, then many congratulations to you. And if you've got some news you want to share with us, you want to share with the world, then drop us a line and we'll do our best to make sure we put your news out there. But if you're looking for a job, and I know that some of you are looking for jobs, for new roles at the moment, then there are lots of jobs out there, and we will continue to just publicize all the jobs that we come out with. If you've got a job that you want to share with the world, if you've got a role that you want to share, then again, let us know and we'll do what we can to try and promote your particular role opportunity. So anyway, congratulations to everyone who's been promoted and everyone's got a new job, and best of luck for everyone who is looking either to fill a role or to apply for a role. We're now going to move on, and we're going to move on to our immigration update. And once again, we are super honored to have with us Julia Onslow Cole. So everybody, and she's got some really exciting news to share this week. So everybody, how it works. Please hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome to our stage the one and only Julia Onslow Cole.
Brian.
Julia, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
And you've been hobnobbing with the great and the good again, I hear.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, I had a meeting this morning with the Vietnamese ambassador to London. It's very impressive talking to him. And it's just coincides with me picking already that we're going to talk about Southeast Asia today. So that's good.
So absolutely. So, I mean, we are so honored to have you on the show, Julia, because you do seem to know everybody in the world, and the information you provide to us is just fantastic.
Oh, thank you. But really, I get all the information from my colleagues at Fragment. So I wanted to say a big shout out as well to Mark Buchanan, because he's written some blogs about Southeast Asia, and I spoke to him on Tuesday. So,
big shout out to Mark Buchanan, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you to Mark. So obviously, with all that's going on geopolitically, and we're going to talk about that next week, Brian, the situation with Southeast Asia is quite complex, because some of the tariffs that President Trump announced would go on to the Southeast Asian countries were rather huge. So Vietnam was potentially 46% and Thailand 37%. Singapore was not so high, but it wouldn't be because there is a huge imbalance in favor of the US for exports from Singapore. But these countries in Southeast Asia could be quite hard hit by the tariffs. And in fact, I think there was some calculation I read that it could take like 5% of GDP straight away in some of the countries. But the thing is that what you're seeing, and you're seeing this, and we're going to be discussing it in much more detail, and it's very sort of interesting, is you're seeing this tug of war between the US administration and China over some of these countries. So we saw on Monday, Xi Jinping, he was in Vietnam, and then he had another visit to Malaysia and Indonesia. And basically the Belt and Road Initiative is very successful. It's there's, I think, 130 countries have been signed up. It's not just about infrastructure support, but it's also about lending money, which can be lent on much more favorable terms than the IMF. And so, countries are quite, and they're being wooed, and so we're in a very different situation than we have been before. We are in a kind of a melting pot. And as I say, it's quite fascinating geopolitically, and it's something we're going to talk about. And what does this mean for global mobility? But I just wanted to pull out a couple of things from Southeast Asia. So Singapore, there is this one pass, and that there's been 3,000 of them issued so far, which is actually a fairly large number. And what we're finding is that VIPs or CEOs, or even not maybe CEOs, but if it was a very well-paid organization like, say, in banking or finance, someone just a senior executive, are really pushing to have the one pass because it's a personal immigration. It's so much more flexible than being on an employment pass, but you have to earn at least 30,000 Singapore dollars a month, which is about 23,000 US dollars. And really, it's only for about the top 5% of expats. But it's quite interesting, and this is what Mark's blog was about, how you get this dichotomy between, on the one hand, there is in all of the countries around the world an emphasis on protecting personal labor, and that we know that in Singapore. We know about the new compass system because I've talked about that several times, and that's quite tough. And then the fair frame framework it's really quite tough to get employment passes, and there's very restrictive rules and making sure that you're opening up to the resident population, the fair consideration framework. But then on the other hand, what we're seeing is these very good initiatives like the One Pass. And then it's quite interesting to follow in Singapore because there are elections this year, and there has been quite a lot of opposing questions to the government, which have been made, saying, should we be allowing a lot of people in? Should we be pushing back on things like the One Pass? But the government have been quite firm in saying, no, we have this framework, but we should be really allowing this. And then turning to Thailand, there are difficulties that clients are having with the quota system. If your company comes under the Board of Investment, then there is no quota. But otherwise, you are restricted because of the quotas. And, again, there is that dichotomy. There's some schemes that make things a little easier for a very small percentage of the population, but it is actually, quite tough. And another thing, if you turn, lastly, I just wanted to mention to Vietnam. Vietnam in 2021 had a new labor decree, which was called 152, and that was very, very restrictive. And so then they brought in a new decree, which was Decree 70. And the idea was that they would then, by Decree 70, they would reduce some of the harshness for 152. And although it did improve things, there are still a lot of things that could be improved. For example, if you have a permit to work in one part of Vietnam, you can't necessarily work in another part. And also you have to have a labour market test, where that might not be necessary if you were, for example, an intercompany transfer. But, having said all of that, for Vietnam, it's incredibly impressive, actually, how much investment is made by companies, from outside of Vietnam, and particularly the flow of trade between the UK and Vietnam is really impressive. And there are lots of very exciting opportunities in Vietnam, which and special support for different industries like finance, renewable energy, and many initiatives. So we are in quite exciting times, but it is worth reflecting, if you're having to move people into that whole region, that there are some difficulties that you need to really plan for. I think the planning is the key.
Absolutely. That planning is the key. So thank you so much for that update. Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam. I mean, such a dynamic area and going through such a lot of change at the moment with everything that's going on with China and the US and tariffs and trade agreements, etc. It is one that we will be watching carefully over the coming weeks and months. And as Julia said, we are back in a couple of weeks' time with a special show, next week, all about geopolitics. So really exciting stuff going forward. Thank you so much for that update, Julia. We're now going to be moving on. I'm so excited. We have backstage Punita Suri from Genpact, who is our change maker of the week. So you know how it works. Let's say a big thank you to Julia Onslow Cole and a welcome to our show to Punita in the time-honored fashion of hitting that heart button, hitting that like button, and hitting that applause button. Hi, Punita. So great to have you on the show.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you.
Just loving it. So, Punita, tell us a bit about Genpact. What does Genpact do?
So, Genpact offers the technology and the quality solutions, and we work into process improvements for different clients in various industries and spaces.
Okay, and from a mobility perspective, give us an idea of volumes or scope.
Okay, so we have up to, which is because I manage the non-US geography, so we have up to 700 relocations or transfers, short terms, long terms, different types of transfers, which is across different regions, which is non-US geographies, EMEA, APAC, LATAM, Canada. So up to 700, 800 we have been in the year.
Okay, so yeah, a chunky program. So you're one of our wonderful Benevo change makers, and many thanks for doing that. If anybody wants to be out there wants to be a change maker, then just drop us a line or let Tally know, and we'll see if we can make you a change maker too. It's aimed at corporate mobility professionals with a passion for technology. But Punita, tell us, what do you find you get most out of being a change maker? What do you love about it?
Yeah, so change maker community definitely helps us to stay connected with peers or who are navigating like or facing similar challenges in the mobility world, and then learn more about how other organizations are managing the international transfers, their assignments. And of course, being part of this community helps with exchanging the insights, learn the best practices from what others are doing and how to really solve the issues which we are facing, and then get to know about the different companies or are your peers from the same industry using different types of technologies or the compliance requirements. So I would say it's a great platform for collaboration and continuous learning, and which I value highly because I always would want to learn from different people and incorporate something which you learn in this evolving world of immigration.
And I mean, it's a bit of an obvious question, but how important is technology from your perspective in terms of managing your program?
So technology solutions definitely offers the efficiency to the overall process of mobility. Plus, it enhances the employee experience because when we are trying to manage the compliances and ensuring the employee experiences at the same time. So, if we add something which is related to technological solutions in terms of an overall platform where employees can log in, raise their travel requests, and then also if we can offer like chatbot solutions which we are offering currently to our employees if they have any kind of queries related to mobility or any transfer. So we have a chatbot where they can write to us and it reaches to us and we guide them. So always technology solutions enhance the employee experience and balancing the needs of the compliances and at the same time making your processes more efficient.
Okay, that's thank you for saying that. I mean, the deal we have with our change makers, of course, is that the change makers, they join the community, they help each other, and they help us at Benevo as we sort of design and roll out new aspects of our technology. But the other side of the coin is that we support our wonderful change makers, and the way we do it is by supporting any charity of their choice. And you've chosen a charity which I know is very dear to your heart. So tell us a bit about Sight Savers, which is your charity of choice.
Yeah, so Sight Savers works to prevent the sight loss and avoidable blindness in one of like the world's poorest regions, and their efforts are focused on protecting the sight of the most vulnerable people. So and they do a lot of different stuff in terms of offering the cataract operations or helping awareness around the sight impairment and to avoid the blindness first of all, so how to avoid those things. So they do a lot of sessions. So visual impairment can have a very serious impact which I feel, and it can lead like it can stop children from going to school or even lead people not to get to their jobs what they want to do. And then it's just not affect one person, it affects the whole family and the community around them. And the result of visual impairment can be very devastating. So what I feel, and at the same time this cause is very particularly close to my heart as my son is partially sighted, and I personally understand the challenges and impact of a visual impairment. So I do want to support the charities who work towards the sight awareness or helping anybody who is reaching towards the sight impairment or avoidable blindness if it can be done. So that's why I support sight savers.
I mean, it's an amazing charity, and obviously it's blindness or being partially sighted is a devastating condition. So hearts out to you and your son, but also amazing charity. And it's great that we are able to support that charity on your behalf. And if we can do anything further to help your charity or any other Changemakers charity, then please do let us know. So Punita, it's been amazing having you on the show. Really, really appreciate that. We wish you all the best for the future. Thank you for being a change maker. And as I said, thank you for letting us support Sight Savers on your behalf. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
All great. And if anybody out there wants to be a change maker, again, let us know. We're going to move on now. So we're going from one technology company to another. Punita's with Genpact, and we're moving on to meet Yvette from Thoughtworks. So we've got a bit of a tech theme today. So everybody, you know how it works. Let's give a big round of applause to Punita and a welcome to Yvette by hitting that heart button, hitting the like button, and hitting the applause button as we bring to our stage Yvette Ligter. Hey Yvette, I've been waiting for this moment. Well, we got you on stage to talk about global mobility at Thoughtworks, and it's so amazing what you do. But Yvette, first of all, welcome to The View from the Top.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to join this conversation.
And for the people who don't know you, let's just find out a little bit about Yvette, and then we'll find out a bit about Thoughtworks, and then we'll get into the, if you like, the topic du jour. So Yvette, tell us, I mean, I'm hearing a Dutch accent, but I know you live in Spain. So tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm from the Netherlands. I've been born and raised there. And after high school, I had a gap year, to put it that way, and got the opportunity to go to Spain as a nanny. That didn't go well, but I loved Spain. I was not fit to be a nanny. But I did love Spain. I love the culture. I love the wet temperature as a Dutchie. We love the sun. And I really found my spot here. So yeah, I tried to go back to Amsterdam to study after the gap year. That didn't go well. So I decided to go back and do...
You're a superstar, says Natalia, sorry. Yvette equals superstar. There we go. Okay.
She's our global head of mobility at Thoughtworks, so thank you, Nat.
Shout out to Natalia.
Yeah, amazing team we have. And yeah, so I ended up studying tourism, working as a business travel agent, going into logistics, HR, and finally ending up at mobility. And at Thoughtworks, I've been doing that for 6.5 years. I've been in different spaces within the people team, so it means HR function. And for the last 3.5 years, I've been dedicated fully to mobility, and now leading the India, Middle East, and Europe space at Thoughtworks with Nati and the rest of the team.
And you're based in Barcelona, which has got to be one of the world's most beautiful cities.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I think that's one of the reasons I can leave after getting here.
Okay, and you've been there for a number of years, you've said, and I know you said your kids were downstairs earlier, so we'll wait to see if they turn up and join us on the show.
No, I've cornered myself here. They're I can hear they're playing and they're good.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, if they come in, we'd love to see them on the show. Anyway, so Yvette, so thank you so much for being on the show. So tell us a bit about Thoughtworks. I mean, a lot of people will have heard of Thoughtworks, but there'll be people out there that don't know Thoughtworks. So tell us a bit about the company itself.
Yeah, so Thoughtworks is a company that is a global company. So we have offices all over the globe, I would almost say. And we're 10,000 plus employees right now. Thoughtworks is a tech consultancy. So it means that it's a company that will help any company with any of their tech situations. And it's like, it, it's through design, through quality consultancy, understanding really what is the matter, what is the situation, and it's from anywhere, right? So from databases to apps to any tech situation, and in various industries. And we have very specialized and very dedicated people right now. That we've been leading the AI and data space, which is within the tech world, right? Which the space that is growing most. And I think at Thoughtworks, we're within the tech industry, they're famous, right, for their tech radar, which is a regular radar with any tech updates, where people are really dedicated to understand what's new, what's best practices, and where to learn and share knowledge. It's a very social company, I would say, in that sense, right? Like, it's important
You
diversity.
said social company, but I know when we were prepping this, you're talking a lot about some of the stuff that Thoughtworks does. And one of the reasons I'm so keen to get you on the show is that there's an awful lot of companies that sort of mobility is something that happens, that, the line is deciding what to do, and then mobility just sort of
Operates. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're one of the few companies where I think mobility is truly strategic, and we call this collecting global mobility with talent. So tell us a bit about that, because you started off as, obviously, when you joined the company and you go back, a fairly small, diverse organization. Tell us a bit about the mobility journey at Thoughtworks.
Yeah, so when I joined 6.5 years ago, it was basically every country had their own leadership and their own operations team, right? So that included a person dedicated to the mobility for that country, and that worked. But it was really, like you say, it was really more of an administrational function of like, okay, these people are getting in, fine, we'll work with the setup and the relocation and the immigration. But there wasn't a lot of questions asked. And as time passed by, Thoughtworks changed as a company in terms of we were growing. The company was regionalizing, so globalizing even, right? So more operations team became more global. The leadership as well, instead of having one managing director for each country, it became a regional director. So everything has changed and moved into a different operational system, which allowed us as well to change the mobility function with that whole transformation. And I think over the last years, we have been able to really understand what is the business current need, and how can we not only look into like what's the business needed to move one person to the other for a specific project just because they're needed there, but how do we enhance this mobility experience for our employees, ensuring that we help them in their growth path, we help them with growing the right capabilities, which is interesting for us as a company as well. And offering opportunities that align with the business needs, that and with the personal with the people looking for international experiences on their CV, to put it that way.
So how does that, let's deep dive into it a bit. How does that work in practice? What does that actually mean? This new way of working compared to, if you like, the traditional way of working.
So it means that our team has gone through a huge transformation. So as you can understand, we've gone from having one or two or even three people in a specific country dedicated to that country's immigration and relocation, towards a global team where we have divided into regional partners. So like I said, I'm taking care of Europe, India, Middle East. We have another partner taking care of the Americas, and then another one for APAC. And then we have a more operational team, right? So it's the team that's helping us with the day-to-day things, like understanding how to the right movements into the right system, work with our vendors to make sure that the people are set up with the right immigration package or the right relocation package, and get the support that they need as well from our local teams. Then we've gone just not through a transformation of our team, but also with our stakeholders. So our stakeholders have changed slightly. Like I said, we've gone from regional operations and management teams to global and country to regions, right? So people, stakeholders managing the regions, and looking with a different set of eyes as well, not just looking at what's my country benefits or revenue. It's how are we doing as a region? And for example, in Europe, right, like and in India, it's considered one region. So where do we have specific capabilities? Where do we have our talent? And how can we match our talent with what we need right now or what our clients are asking for? And that's where the mobility function has really been able to team up with those stakeholders and with the leadership in trying to understand how is their business changed and how can mobility play a more effective and efficient role, not just for the business in terms of like lowering costs and ensuring that any movement we make actually makes sense for their business, but also how is it a good experience for our employees, and how can we combine that experience with their growth and the growth of capabilities that we know are going to be needed in the future, and create I would say, strategic talent growth path, which goes from hire to.
Yeah, let's get into that. But just to give people an idea, what sort of volumes are we talking about, here in terms of people?
We have about 500 movements. So, and right now we are focusing a lot on transfers, so relocations. So people really moving from one country to another. We do have international assignments as well as part of those 500, right? So there are short-term and longer-term assignments, and we have been increasing short-term assignment, which is something we didn't really do until last year. So it was all very much 12 months or 24 months and or transfers. And we have started as well looking into business like, okay, we have clients that require some of our people to be working from another country for 6 to 9 months. So how do we align with our policies, right? So that's a little bit of the volume we have. There's a lot of international business trips, but and then we have shorter term and longer term trips as well, but I don't include those in this number.
Okay, so mainly transfers. Even if a person is coming back at some point in the future, it's still a transfer.
Yeah, so that's a tricky question. We do not commit to going back, right? So we do explain to people that are transferring that they are committing to this new country. We do try to understand like what's the minimum we need this person to be in this new country for the business, for it to make sense before they would want to move on to another country, which could be going back to their home country or even to a third country. And we do explain as well that they have to go through the selection process, right? And there has to be a business need if they do want to transfer back or on.
Okay, so I know one of the things you do, which is super exciting, is that you use mobility, as we said, it's not just operational, but it's as a tool for career growth, for diversity and for workforce planning. So tell me a bit about how you use mobility as a tool for career growth. It's that link with talent that I'm really fascinated about.
Well, we're working on that. So because I have a background as a talent business partner and in different areas of the people team, it's close to my heart, right, to make sure that any movements we make, and having seen like people, wanting to grow in their career and how international experience, and I think that's a Thoughtworks really believes in. We believe in a diverse environment. So that means a lot of diversity, but also cultural diversity, traditional diversity, language diversity, that can help to improving our service and our view on how we are helping our clients to improve their technology, right? So how we are working right now is, for example, I'm a close part of the supply, or mobility is part of the supply function, and we are in the conversations about our supply strategy, right? So what is demand, what is the supply, how do we make
That's
sure
interesting.
we have...
So mobility is part of the supply function. I've not really heard that before. That's a fascinating way of looking at it. Okay, so the client is the demand side, and you're the. I get that. I mean, that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
I mean, we're not just part of it. We're officially embedded in Total Rewards, but we are, we are definitely part of a supply because we bring people in, right?
I get it. That's a light bulb moment for me. Okay, it's part of a supply function.
Yeah, so for me, that's joining conversations where, our head of operational excellence and our main stakeholders who are leading all of our teams get together with recruitment, with learning and development, with mobility, with the people team as well, right? To understand, like, okay, what's going to happen in the next quarter? How many people are we going to need? Which are the roles and the grades and the tenure and the capabilities that we need to bring in order to, get to the demand part of what our clients are asking for. And last year specifically, we had a moment in Europe where they were telling us, oh, we're going to grow. We need to hire like 120 persons per quarter. And that's where I said, but we're only 1,000 persons, 1,500 maybe now in Europe. That's a big part of the population that you're growing. And if we already have like a short supply, let's bring in tenured people from other regions who can help with making sure that all of those new hires are compensated with people who have the Thoughtworks knowledge, the Thoughtworks best practices, who have connections as well with other regions, and so we can connect all of those capabilities. And that's been quite successful over the last 2 quarters. We've brought in at least 20% of the new joiners to Europe right now are through the mobility program. So it's leveraging a little bit of those of that knowledge and ensuring that we maintain our culture, which is a big piece for Thoughtworks as well. We are very keen on maintaining our culture and our best practices. So we've been trying to.
This is really interesting because for a lot of companies, their first position, if they're looking to hire, is to go to the market and see who they can hire. But you're actually flipping that and saying, actually, your first position should be to see who is available elsewhere in the organization, who in turn knows the culture, it's career development for them, it's talent development for them. So actually, your message is look internally first to preserve the culture or build the culture rather than go.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So you're trying to move away from external recruitment if you can.
I don't think it's moving away. I do think it's important to keep external recruiting, and I do think it's definitely like we need that, right? Like we need to recruit people in order to grow as a company. That's definitely a thing. But what I've seen, especially taking care of like working with India, is that in India, it's a big part of your career means having an experience outside of India, right? So for our whole talent strategy in India, knowing for our employees, like one big frustration in India was like people not understanding when they could go on an assignment because they are assuming that this is part of their journey at Thoughtworks, right? Like or assuming that that's just kind of the expectation. Sorry, that's the right word. So I wanted to embed and like, okay, we have here one region that really, has people that are keen to travel out. We have a lot of tenured people in India who have done amazing work, who are working a lot with distributed accounts. So it means that they are in touch with, Europe or North America or Australia clients, and they have a lot of exposure to different types of work. And we have a Thoughtworks University program. So that's for, for people who are new to the tech world and starting to their career. They do a training in India. So we have a lot, like India is a huge hub for us, right? It's an important piece of our business and where we grow a lot of talent. And as going out on an international experience is part of a good work experience there and a growth path, I kind of like, we said, okay, let's match that, right? Let's see how we can make sure that for India we stay an interesting and a good place to work by embedding that into our
culture. The obvious question to me from what you're talking about was the whole question of backfilling. Is that if you're not hiring in the local market, but you're moving people internally, then who's doing the job that they were doing back in their own country?
Yeah, it definitely means in India, it's a huge supply demand conversation as well, where we have to look into like, okay, like you say, if we're moving people out, how do we make sure that we, refill that sounds a bit weird, but how do we make sure that India doesn't lose their supply towards the other regions, and so it's been really interesting to talk to the recruitment team and understand like, okay, or talent acquisition team, sorry, how easy is it to hire certain profiles in Europe or versus in India or in other regions where we are seeing a supply gap. And and be strategic on that as well. So it may be that in India, it's actually quite easy to hire data engineers because there's a lot of experienced people there. Well, in Europe right now, the market is saturated. So there's not a lot of for talent acquisition. There's not a lot of new hires they can do in that profile in the work that we want. So it's really identifying together with the different teams, where do we have a supply that we can easily get through in the markets, and how can we bring them into Thoughtworks and then embed that as well in like moving people from India. Like anybody who is in India, they need to have 5 years tenure before they can move to another region. So it means that anybody we move will have that Thoughtworks way of working and culture embedded for sure. So that's like one of the criteria we put.
Are the most people you move from India, or do you move people from other countries to other countries?
From other countries as well. So we have a lot of people, like in Latin America, there's a similar drive for people to have that international experience. So specifically for our offices we have offices in Chile and Ecuador, which are Spanish-speaking countries. And that's, for example, for Spain is amazing because we are bringing people in that have this different view and this different experience and this different ways of working. Still Thoughtworks ways of working, but different exposure to different clients who we can move to Spain and have that language part. So we don't have to worry about, that they have to speak English because we are, and most, like everybody here will speak English. But it's a great add-on for people to speak Spanish, because then we can cater to Spanish clients here as well, for example. We've also moved people moving from Southeast Asia, from China, from Australia even. So there's a bit of everything, I have to say.
There's a comment that's come in from the wonderful Ferzine Chapgar, who was a guest on the show, in fact, last week. And I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. She says, global mobility is both a science and an art, balancing people, expectations, and business needs while improving retention, backfilling roles, and shaping forward-looking strategies. So let's talk a bit about that. I mean, let's talk about the art of global mobility. What's your view on global mobility as an art form?
I definitely agree. I mean, you need to be able to put on so many hats and you need to understand about so many different things in order to understand the bigger picture. And I love that. I think it's really well said. And it's an art. I think it's an art. I think you need to have, or at least you need to have, I don't know the word right now in English, sorry. But you need to have this passion, to put it that way, to want to understand people, but also the business, and create the right scenario for everybody to feel that they're listened to, that we're doing the right thing for them and for the business, and set the really good expectations, right? Like, what is going to be your situation? What do you need from a business? So you really need to identify, what do you need as a business? I think that's a very good conversation we need to start having more and more, right? Like, what is the ask from you and why are you doing this? Get people to understand what is the cost of the movement, right? Like, so it's definitely an art, and it involves so many different facets. I don't know if that's a word.
I love that. I mean, a shout out to Ferzine. I think she's onto something here. The art form of global mobility, because it's about, what comes into the art form is who you move, when you move them, how you move them, what's going to be the most successful way. And actually, you can be scientific about it, but actually some of it is intuitive too, that you sort of know with experience what is likely to work. I mean,
Yes.
That's a cool concept. So let me move on. Yeah, well done, Ferzine, for that one. But let's move on. I mean, there's 3 types of people that you could employ. You could employ, obviously, you can transfer people from, say, India to Spain, or you can hire locally, Spanish nationals, or indeed you could hire people in Spain who are themselves visa dependent. We get a lot of that, international local hires. Now, I know that's an area that, you're quite focused on controlling. But tell us about about putting limits on, hiring visa dependent employees.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's happened a lot, like I said, we were growing so much and we were hiring so many people, so the talent acquisition team has come to a market where they feel like there's no more talent, let's look outside. And they started coming with a lot of requests for mobility ones, like they wanted mobility support and making sure that there were, you know, certain talent that would get into Spain or UK or any of the other countries, right, with a relocation and immigration package. And my team has been, like I said, we've been transformed. We've changed a lot over the years, but we've also been quite reduced. Because it's not been one person in every country anymore, right? Like we're working with a different team right now and a different setup. And on the other side, as a business, we've decided to make this move on you know, getting people from other regions into like right now it's Europe, it could be any of the other regions, right? But the story will be the same. So as a function, we obviously have a certain capacity, and we have a way of working where we can cater to a number of people, quality relocation, and that's where I believe it's better to say no, I'm sorry, or like I did with, for example, our team, and say, well, right now we can bring in 5 people per month maximum on a permit, which means that either they can be already here in the country and we just switch employers, to put it that way, or we bring them in from another region. And it's been key in having the conversation with talent acquisition to have them understand not just about the capacity, but also it has a future impact. If we have people here on a visa and we need them to travel to the UK regularly because we have a client based in the UK, it gives me more work in the end, because they will need business visas, or they may need business visas, let's just put it that way, depending on our visitor visas for the UK, right? So it's not just about right now, it's also about the future. We need to renew their permit at some point. We need to make sure we have a compliant, you know, employees here in any regions that we have. So yeah, we agreed on a number of employees that we will be able, or talent that we would be able to sponsor and review as well. And that way we kind of put criteria and said, okay, let's only do those profiles with a certain experience and certain salary, minimum salary, and not any person.
I just love that, because, you know, in so many cases, so many organizations, you know, the work just keeps pouring into the global mobility function. They're told, you know, we're hiring this, we're hiring that, and they just do it, and they end up sort of pulling their hair out, or, you know, resigning or whatever. They, you know, because it all things drop. Whereas what you're saying is you've got a limit. This is how many people you can onboard into, if that's the right phrase, into mobility, whether they're local visa dependent or they're international transfers.
Yeah.
So that's got the capacity. And then you're going back to the line and saying, this is the number of people we can take, we can physically process. So actually, here's a choice, and maybe let's focus on the people who know our culture the best and prioritize those over the people who are sort of don't know us. Because I suppose if you're looking at the best fit, the best fit is going to be either someone who is local or someone who understands the culture because they already work. But maybe the worst fit is the person that neither understands the culture and is a complex hire because they need visa. So it's very smart thinking. And again, hats off. I mean, I think you guys are doing some fantastic job. So hats off to you and your, I don't know if you want to give a shout out to the rest of your team, Yvette. But
I do. I really want to give a shout out. Natalia, she's here. Thank you for being an amazing lead. She's been leading the function for 5+ years now. I'm sorry, it's been forever. And she's done an amazing job in making sure that our team has gone through a transformation, finding a right home for us. We've moved from people operations to now total rewards. While another part of the team, who's more of the operations team, has moved to people operations. And she's been doing an amazing job in helping us find our voice, I would say, and being able to talk to the stakeholders and helping set those limits as well, and ensuring that we have a safe space and a quality service we can maintain for any people in the mobility team, and the rest of the team. I just want to say thank you so much. I'm really happy and glad to have our team.
Absolutely. And as Natalia said, 5 happy years. So it's amazing. Let me move on to a slightly related subject, which is that as you globalize, you said you've gone from local to regional to global. That is globalizing your team. But the other side of the coin, of course, is globalizing your supply chain, globalizing your vendors. And there's a big dilemma or dichotomy of views between those companies that say, we want to have one global vendor because we want to have consistency, and those that say, no, we want to get best in class in every location. And it doesn't matter whether they are global or not. Where are you on that sort of spectrum between, global consistency versus best in class local expertise?
Yeah, we're on a journey still, I would say. I mean, we've been trying to separate the relocation services and the immigration services for now, because our teams have been, we still have some of our countries where we do immigration in-house. It's a very big mix. So what we did is focus first on the relocation side, and also unify that, right? Because we had some countries where, I don't know, office managers were involved in temporary housing, and there was a big mix of everything. So we decided to focus on the relocation first, and we have been able to get to a one relocation vendor beginning of this year. I would say that's when it was officially like one vendor for all. They were already operating in a few of our regions, and based on that, we just continued that conversation. And then for immigration, we had a clear idea last year to see if we could move into a one immigration vendor from January or Q1 with a slow implementation. And I have to say we failed. That meeting, that timeline at least.
Oh, no.
Yes, that didn't work out.
You haven't failed. You just haven't succeeded yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, so we haven't succeeded yet, and we're actually thinking now, do we want to succeed? That's been a thought that we have been playing with more recently, because we've had different conversations, different vendors. We had some trials, and we had some some of the conversations, and sorry. It's and it's been interesting to see how how different vendors managed or not to meet certain expectations, or to get back with us with interesting information. And I'm not in charge of the immigration side, so I'm not a decision maker, but I can definitely give my input. But it's really about understanding, I think. From my experience, it's really hard to find one vendor that can offer global quality services everywhere in the same dimension. And so yes, it's like I said, we're on a journey here, and I don't know. I think I think for us it's still a conversation. Do you want to continue with finding the one global vendor? I think it's a unicorn that will be very hard to find.
I think we were talking about this earlier. But one of the things that companies can do now is, if they have multiple, say, immigration vendors, you can use one technology hub, and obviously that's what we do.
Yeah.
But I won't go there. Is you can use one hub to sort of manage multiple vendors, so you get the consistency with the best class service, or whatever the relationship services are. Let me talk about another thing. I mean, a lot of thought has gone into your program, and shout out to you and Natalia and the team what you do. How do you track it? How do you measure success? I mean, how do you understand the impact of mobility is actually having on talent retention and achievement, etc.? How are you monitoring it?
I think that's still a part where we are getting into. So we are tracking, and we do share regular data with our stakeholders, obviously, and trying to understand, like, follow up, right? So we work with our business partners to make sure that talent business partners to make sure that whoever's moving gets a follow up, and whenever somebody's moving, we do a whole profile. We try to understand how's been their performance, how's been their impact, and how do we translate that into the new country, and what are the expectations when they get into the new country. We work with global roles and global grades, so everything is very unified. But moving from one country or one region to another, it means they'll be exposed to different things. So what I think what we try to understand is that those people who have made a movement after 1 year, what has been their performance, what has been their impact, did they continue their growth, or did they make a huge jump, or were they not doing as successful as they were in their previous region. And we work with the talent business partners to really like monitor, like, okay, what's the performance and what's been the outcome. And I think a year is long enough for them to have been able to settle down and provide good time for their experience. For assignments, it's been a journey to make sure that whoever gets back after a longer term, so 1, 2, or maybe normally 2 years and sometimes even 3 years, to make sure that they get back and that they are able to readjust and to have the right conditions back in their home country and to leverage all of that knowledge, right? And that's been working with the staffing teams and with the talent business partners to make sure that we have a good understanding of what have they done. We don't expect a full report from the people, but we do want to ask, like, can we get feedback from their time there? What are capabilities that you have been exposed to, or types of clients? And then really make sure that we do recognize the growth that they've had. The tracking is not easy, I have to say. So it's a lot of different sheets, unfortunately, and making sure that we understand if people are leaving, what's the reason, right? And what happened there, and get our learnings from it.
Yeah, I mean, people leaving, I think, is inevitable. I mean, that happens every organization. The important thing is to track it. I know there's a lot of work going on. We're doing a lot of work on this whole question of tracking ROI and measuring success, and I think technology will be our friend. I know we do a lot of work around sentiment analysis, so you can actually read the tone of the emails and work out what's going on. But also there's tracking stuff. There's loads of stuff that is coming down the turnpike. One of the phrases I know we talked about it earlier, but that we use is turning data into conversation. So you can actually just interrogate the system to find out what's going on. So we've only got about a minute and a half left, but just in the last 60 seconds or so, your magic wand, what would you like to change? What would you like to do next with your program over the next sort of, say, 3-4 years?
I would love to get more technology as a technology company. No, it's but I would like to get better, and myself, right? Like, we've started to use AI. We started to use we're just getting into that world. So for myself, I think that's definitely in line with our company, right? As like, that's what we do. We are leaders in AI and data. But for our operations teams, I would love to get into that as well. So that's something we will be focusing on, I think.
Cool. Okay, we're coming pretty much to the end of our show. Yvette, it's been absolutely amazing having you on the show. And I think some of the stuff you are doing at Thoughtworks, I mean, you might as well just change the name of the company to Thought Leadership. I mean, it's, there's some really good stuff that is coming out, and credit to you and all your colleagues for everything that you are doing. I'm going to bring back onto stage our change maker, Punita, and indeed our wonderful producer, Tally. And unfortunately, Julia had to drop for another meeting. But we are now out of time. We are back this time next week with a super important show. We're going to be talking about, has global mobility reached a turning point? And it is probably one of the most important shows that we've had for a long time. And we're really looking forward to everybody joining us and sharing their thoughts. We are out of time. All that really remains now for the last couple of seconds is for me to thank Yvette, to thank Punita, to thank Julia, and of course, our wonderful producer, Tally. And most importantly, to thank you, the audience. So everybody, have a great, great week. Have a great Easter. Have a great Passover, and just have a great spring break, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you all again this time next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.